on to keep from starving. So how did they survive? And one of my uncles said, we could survive it for many reasons. One of the things, we still knew how to plow with mules. But he said, you won't be able to survive it if it happens again, because you don't have the strength. And that strength came from their culture, which was a Christian culture. But we have to be the builders of culture. And inshallah, God bless you, and let us work together, let us get to know each other, let us love each other and respect each other.
Question about how to spread. Wouldn't one of the things be to understand their culture? To look at it, study it, observe, and see the similarities, because that was one of the things that our Sheikh has said, that finding the similarities and then homing in on those things. And, you know, and that's my only suggestion.
Thank you very much.
We asked the question that we are told that it's a sunnah to eat a particular type of food, or if it's a sunnah to wear a particular type of dress, or it's a sunnah to attend to a particular formality in a particular way. That's one part of it. So how do we reconcile that with the position that you placed now? That we must become part of the culture of the Europe. So that's one part.
First of all, we're not saying at all that you have to become part of the culture around you. Okay, I never said that, and I don't say that. You are you, and I don't see anything wrong with you. Okay, you have your culture, and inshallah you develop it as you see fit, and as you see is wise and appropriate. But to say that, is this dress sunnah? Because it's brown, and this shirt is black, and his is white. And is his more sunnah than mine? The Prophet didn't dress that way or this way. And he didn't have buttons, and he didn't have sewn clothing. He wore different types of dress. He wore Byzantine dress, Yemeni dress, different colors of dress. And he did that to show you that there is no one type of dress which can be called sunnah. And if you want to dress like him, then put on ihram and take off your underwear, okay, and take off your t-shirt. And now you're following the sunnah. And you can wrap a turban if you want. He didn't wear a hat like this. So there's a lot of latitude. And in our fiqh schools, we talk about sunnatul hidayah. And those of you who've studied Hanafi fiqh, you know about this. There is sunnatul hidayah. There is the sunnah of guidance, like smiling, like being good to your neighbor, having no jealousy in your heart, and so forth. And there is sunnatul ada. There is the sunnah of the cultural convention of the Prophet's time. And the sunnah al-hidayah is binding. And the sunnah al-ada, this is something that may change, and sometimes has to. You can actually drive a car. Did he ever drive a car? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Why don't you ride a mule? Why don't you ride a camel? People like me, as a beginner in Islam, that was a big problem for me. It never was for you. But I can be a real idiot. And it's like, do I really have the right to ride a car? I mean, it makes me sound insane. But it's like, that's not the sunnah. And in fact, I even thought I can't have more than 2 pieces of clothing, because he had 2 pieces of clothing. And I gave away my whole wardrobe. Again, I'm not proud of that. But, you know, we learn from our mistakes. And alhamdulillah, knowledge is what saved me, I believe. But inshallah, let's not be confused by these things. And another thing is that in fiqh in particular, and those of you who've studied fiqh, you know this, almost every issue in fiqh that is not an asl, that is not a fundamental set ruling that we all agree on, is dhanni. It is conjectural. And that's why, is it the Hanafi madhab to fast Ramadan? Or to pray 5 times a day? Or to make hajj? No. That's nobody's madhab. That's Quran and Sunnah, clear and simple. But do you pray Asr when the shadow is as long as your body or twice as long? That's madhab, because it requires methodology of interpretation. I love Abu Hanifa, and I've written about Abu Hanifa, but he has a methodology. And you need to understand that methodology. Imam al-Shafi'i, whom I love, has a different methodology, which is fascinating to me. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal has an even different one. And Imam Malik has an even different one. And madhab is always conjectural. And that means that you are free to follow it and any interpretation of it, whether you're a Deobandi or a Brelwi or whatever you may be. You're free. That's your business. But you know yourself, and I know this from great Deobandi scholars and Brelwi scholars, you know, that what is conjectural here, we will allow other people to take a different interpretation. We have to. And this is how we have unity and multiplicity, and why unity is not uniformity. A lot of our people today, they don't understand that. They want us all to be the same, and we'll never be the same. And we've got to have a unity that comes from the inside of us. And then you be you and I'll be me. You know, if I want to take Islam to my people whom I love, I don't love the foreign policy of my country, but I love my people. And if I take it to them, I can't ask them to change much. You know, you can't. And if I can take just a few minutes, if you find a person dying of thirst in the desert, and we Muslims knew a lot about that because we knew the deserts. We lived and traveled in the deserts, and always in our caravan, there was a locked box that had in it something more precious than gold, and that was sugar. It was rock sugar, natural sugar, kept under lock and key. Why? Well, of course, people would eat it, but why? Because if you find a person in the desert who's dying of thirst, are you going to give them this pitcher of water because they would love to drink it? They would die to drink it, and if they drink it, they would die. It will shock their nervous system to a point they won't be able to live. So, and we were trained, I was a Boy Scout, and we were trained really well. We were trained, how do you bring a person dying of thirst back to life? And of course we had imitations, but we had masters, scout masters, who would fight. It's like, let me drink. And you have to hold him down. And you can just give him a drop. And he said, no, give me more. And you have to hold him down. And another drop, and another drop. But what the Muslims would do is give him a drop of water and a drop and a bit of sugar. We weren't taught that in the Boy Scouts or in the Marines or the Army. Give him water and then sugar. And the sugar is sweet and delicious, isn't it? And it also gives you energy. And then give him another drop of water and more sugar. And so we used sugar to bring them back to life along with water. But I want to say that because these people out here, many of even our own brothers and sisters, they are dying of thirst. You would like to teach them the Shahada. You would like to teach them the 5 pillars. You would like to teach them the 6 pillars of Iman and so forth. But that is like giving a person dying of thirst a pitcher of water. They can't take it. And you maybe don't understand that, and I don't expect you to understand that. But you have to give them a drop of water and a piece of sugar. And then we have to do it again, don't we? Not just once. And then maybe you'll get them to take the whole pitcher. And maybe you'll find that they are better Muslims than we are. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala.
We're going to take 2 more questions and then we've got to close.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to thank you for the Islamic tartan that you showed us on your presentation. I'm married to a man of Scottish descent. I'm married to a Campbell, and and we always have this cultural debate among ourselves as a couple. It's kind of interesting because I I've got quarter Burmese heritage, I've got Indian heritage, I've got Persian heritage. And it's a mix of all different cultures. And growing up, we were raised to do certain things. My grandmother taught us how to eat with chopsticks. But in the nutshell, what I wanted to tell you is that tartan, Islamic tartan that you showed me, it had purpose. And subhanAllah, I mean, it was just brilliant. Thank you very much.
Shukran.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Masiha. I want to thank the organizers and thank the esteemed guests for inspiring us tonight with such a vibrant and robust discussion about this very important topic. Especially for me, I think it really touched me how we should have a sort of creative encounter with the other and see other cultures as a theophany of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to celebrate the diversity amongst us. My question is related to how you were talking about people dying of thirst. How can we not just be prosaic, sterile consumers of culture in this country, but rather be active producers like Brother Yusuf Islam and give people some sugar out there?
Well, art is something which is, it's aesthetic. Allah is beautiful, loves beauty, and so therefore we find when we look at nature, beauty. And in so many ways. So when I started looking at, I began as an artist, and I was interested in faces, and I liked doing cartoons, and I used to look at people's, you know, whether they had a big nose and I'd exaggerate, so I'd do cartoons. So, I mean, that was my interest. But when music came along, I found that music opened a wider door. It is, I think, as Sheikh Umar has said, one of the most metaphysical of arts, I found. Because the harmony of music, when the child hears it or when someone hears it, and you get, then if you were in my generation, when the Beatles came along, I'm just giving you this because it's my experience. I don't really know how to answer the question. But in my experience, when I heard the beat, it was like we were like part of the revolution. We were part of the revolution that was going to change what was yesterday to be something that we want tomorrow. That was a big, big urge. And we didn't like the conformity. So that was, it's like a strange thing. But now, my songs ended up to be quite naturalistic, quite spiritualistic, because I ended up facing death a couple of times. And then the question comes, how to respond. So I was artistically, so it's difficult to talk about how to, it's what interests you. It's what interests you. And you know, when I write a song, I'm the first one to hear it. I want to hear something that I want to hear. And so it comes naturally. So you do what comes naturally, of course within the boundaries, but something that you want to see or you want to hear, you make it and you create it, inshallah. And it's part of Allah's attributes to be, we don't create, we recreate, but we are part of the process. And I think that's my answer.
I would like to make this a closing statement, if you'll allow me to do that. And again, we are honored to be with you, and we want to get to know you, and we want to love you, and we want to help you, and we want to be helped by you. And again, you went through apartheid. You had to preserve your identity. How you did that was a miracle. I want to learn from you. I don't want to make any criticism of you because I'm not worthy of that. And I would like to say, though, that we Muslims in the last 250 years have been through hell. The colonial period, the post-colonial period. And your forefathers and mothers here in this country witnessed some of the most brutal aspects of colonialism and imperialism, and you survived. But when we did that, and especially we can look at India, the great Indian subcontinent, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Kashmir. We were the rulers. And that's such a huge story. I wish I could talk about it, and you could talk about it as well. We ruled the world. You know, one of those great scholars that I met in India, he was a Brahwi. I hope that doesn't bother any Deobandi. You know, in fact, he had a beautiful university in Aligarh, and he's a Sayyid from Ahlul Bayt. He was wearing green, I was wearing green, he liked that. And I said, I love your college. And he said, don't make any generalizations about the Brahwis based on this, because this college is unique. But he said that my great-great-grandfather was a teacher of the great masters of the past, like Shah Waliullah of Delhi. And he said that they were people who knew how to rule the world. And they understood the logic of kings and princes and military generals and architects and so forth. So he said they were able to have a broad vision. And then he said that was all taken away. It was all destroyed. And when it was destroyed, and this was necessary, then in the Indian subcontinent and elsewhere, the imperative became to save what we've got left. And therefore, often in the subcontinent and elsewhere, we become closed in. And we become self-centered because I've got to survive. You're not ruling anymore, but you used to be a ruler. You used to know how to speak to the Hindus. Even the great Deobandi masters in the beginning, they spoke to the Hindus in the most insightful way believable. Okay? So we become self-enclosed. And I think in apartheid, you had to do this too, just to survive. And you tell me your story. I won't tell you your story. But the thing is that when we want to spread Islam, we've got to make bridges. And also, we've got to facilitate their coming into Islam. And that means don't put any obstacles there that don't have to be there. And you can live the way you want to, and you will. But remember that this person outside of you, he will think, or she, that if they come into Islam, they've got to be just like you. And they might not be able to be that. And they may not. My own wife, who's from Chicago, and she's African American, and she's one of the greatest lights of my life. We've been married since 1972. And one of the things that kept her from becoming a Muslim is that she doesn't have long hair like most of you have. And she had seen pictures of sisters with the long Indian hair. And she said, but my hair is not like that. So I can't be a Muslim. Of course, you know that's absurd. But you don't know. They don't think like you do. They don't think like you do. And I'll just tell you a story and we'll conclude here. But this woman contacted me several years ago. She was from central Missouri. I'm also from there, very conservative part of the Middle West. She was from an evangelical church. She had been taught that Islam is the religion of Satan, that we are the Antichrist embodied in flesh. And then she began to look on the internet and she tripped over Sheikh Hamza Yusuf and some others. And she said, but wait a minute, this doesn't sound like Satan's religion. And he doesn't look like the Antichrist. And then she said, and this sounds a lot like what I believe in. And so she contacted me. And she said, I want to become a Muslim. And you pray that God forgives me. And you pray that God guides me. But I told her, I don't want you to make any change that is not necessary because you won't survive. And I want you to survive. And she cried. She was happy. That night she saw a dream that she was in a helicopter above the sea, way up in the sky. and the helicopter began to break down. And the pilot said, go to the door and jump. When I say jump, jump, she said, I'll die. He said, that's the only chance you've got. Jump. She said, the dream was so real, she didn't know it was a dream. And then he said, jump, and she was terrified, and she jumped, and she found herself saying, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. And she fell down into the water, and you know that if you jump into the water from a bridge, it's like landing on concrete, isn't it? She said when she hit the water, it was like a feather bed. And she went into the water, and she could breathe like a fish. And she said these beautiful fish came up to greet her that were full of color. She said they were psychedelic. And she said they're not like any fish I've ever seen before. And then when she came out, she was in the Garden of Paradise. This is God's religion. But again, you know, bring people into the religion easily, step by step. And some of us can come in full-fledged, but most of us can't do that. And you've got to make it easy. Look at the way the Blessed Prophet ﷺ spread Islam among the Bedouins. And he made minimal demands on them, didn't he? And even one would say, I'll pray 5 prayers and not a thing more. I'll fast Ramadan, not another fast. I'll make Hajj and that will be it, and so forth. And he said, if he spoke the truth, he will be of the people of the garden. So don't make it more difficult than it has to be. And God bless you, and let's pray for each other, and let's have husnul dhann. Husnul dhanni min husnul ibadah. Having a good opinion is good worship. I have a good opinion of you. I know you have a good opinion of us. And, you know, we've got to block all the doors of Satan. And we've got to work together. And we agree to disagree. You know, you have your school, you have your interpretation. I love you. I don't have any enemies. And I don't say these people are the only ones. You know, but let's respect each other and live with each other and benefit from each other. Unity in diversity, unity in multiplicity. That's the magic that you can do. It's halal. And that's what we've done historically. We can live together in peace. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, for those beautiful words. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us. May He grant you a long life and inshallah bring you back to be our teacher, inshallah. I also want to remind Brother Yusuf that his first visit to South Africa was, I think, in 1982. You were a guest of the Muslim Youth Movement at Assalam. when we had our convention. Yes, that was the muddy road. The year the rally was washed out by the heavy rains during the Easter weekend. So we were the host, but many of us have grown old since then. I also want to thank our Sheikh for gracing our occasion. I know you're very tired, and I think it will be fitting for us to ask our Sheikh to make the closing dua, please. I just want to remind people that refreshments are being served downstairs and salah will be performed after that. Just before we ask the Sheikh to make the final dua, we have some books that are just off the press now. This is a book that's written by Dr. Jasir Auda, which is Reclaiming the Mosque, the Role of Women in Islam's House of Worship. It's hot off the press. In fact, we are the first ones to receive this. It came directly from the printer in Turkey to us. It hasn't been distributed elsewhere. Some of us have managed to get hold of the book. We've read it. And many of the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ that we've heard about preventing women from going to the mosque, he actually gives us the context and rebuts many of those arguments. So I think every one of us should try and get hold of this book. It's for sale here at the back of the hall. Try and get hold of it. You can even buy it online if you don't have the money today. Then we have a book called Journey Through the Quran by Sheikh Sharif Hassan al-Banna, who ran a 4-day course for us during the Easter weekend, and inshallah we'll be running a similar course in Cape Town next year. This is a summary of the Quran with mind maps for each surah. It's a fascinating read, and I will encourage every one of you to buy this book. And the last book that we have for sale is Islam, an Introduction by Professor Tariq Ramadan. All these 3 books are for sale. Please try and purchase them and read them. I think they're very important reading for all of us. Okay, so there's one more book written by Brother Yusuf, Why I Carry a Guitar. Why I Still Carry a Guitar. And that book will be available here and it'll be autographed for you. Sheikh Muhammad, dua.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد رضاك ولك الحمد كالذي نقول خيرا مما نقول ولك الحمد كالذي تقول ولك الحمد على كل حال اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم استرنا بسترك الجميل اللهم استرنا بسترك الجميل اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا اللهم ربنا لا تفضحنا بين عبادك في الدنيا والآخرة اللهم يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله بجاه أسماء الله وصفات الله وأنبياء الله ورسول الله والصالحين من عباد الله اللهم اقضي حوائجنا ظاهرا وباطنا نصر من الله وفتح قريب وبشر المؤمنين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم ارزقنا حسن الخاتمة اللهم ارزقنا حسن الخاتمة اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك اللهم يا عالم السر منا لا تحتك ستر عنا وعافنا واعف عنا وكلنا حيث كنا اللهم أيقظ قلوبنا لك ونبهنا من الغفلة عنك اللهم أيقظ قلوبنا لك ونبهنا من الغفلة عنك اللهم اجعل آخر كلامنا لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد النور ذات الساري سره في جميع الآثار والأسماء والصفات وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين